And so just a little overview on that. Your first and second dimensions are realms of darkness. Your third and fourth are realms of purification, the border worlds, and realms 5 and above are upper worlds. They rise above the veil of illusion. We cannot live there consistently until we rise above the veils of illusion, which are over our own eyes. Then we want to talk a little bit about the mechanics of the alteration of reality, purification, discrimination, and discipline. And we're just going to overview a little bit of what we've been talking about. But I'd like you to take a few breaths here and bring your hands back together and do a few of these vibrational raisings where you pull the hands down and back and forth. And breathe in, breathe out. So the journey begins on the ascension pathway in realms 5 and above, the heavenly realms. It continues on the alteration pathway, discrimination, in realms 3 and 4, the mortal realms, third and fourth dimensional worlds, the earth. Finally, it concludes on the absolution pathway, which is discipline, in realms 1 and 2, the lower and hell realms. Purification deals with reincarnation, personal karma, and misunderstandings about the true nature of eternal love. Karmic misunderstandings resonate towards darkness, even if they originate from ignorance. Thus, purification seeks to alter personal thrusts, which resonate towards delusion, self-gratification, and vice. In purifying these aspects of habitual sin, the Lord redirects the soul towards paths of virtue. So the path of purification leads to the ascension of the soul. In the ascension pathway, you will encounter 8 phases of the purification process: awakening, co-creation, surrender, rites of passage, and initiation into the mysteries, emergence of karma, mirroring of karma, ignition of the eternal flame, and ascension. The soul travels this path by beginning to explore the heavenly realms, realms 5 and above, the worlds of light and life, for the purpose of discovering the true nature of eternal love. Take a breath in. Take a breath out. Let's rev up with our hands. Stay in that vibration while we continue. Discrimination deals with dark and light forces in the universe, becoming energetically capable of recognizing and altering them at God's command. Being able to identify the serpent from the lamb is the first goal, but then the seeker begins to take on the knowledge of energetic evolution in regards to mortal beings, and how to affect it in ways which lead souls, including their own, towards progress. An in breath, take an out breath. Path of discrimination leads to the alteration of reality in energy and on the ground. You'll encounter 3 phases of the discrimination process: rights into the medicine, rights of evolution, and alteration of reality. The soul travels this path by beginning to explore the mortal realms, 3 and 4, third and fourth dimensional worlds, the earth, for the purpose of attaining spiritual discretion and the ability to alter negative thrusts. Take a breath in. Breathing in the light and breathing out any darkness. Discipline deals with sacred practices and teachings from the prophets, saints, mystics, and sages of every world religion throughout time. Intensive self-scrutiny and discipline techniques lead the soul ever deeper into the knowledge of darkness and evil, heaven, purgatory, and hell, and the continual combat that rages in every soul between these forces. Path of discipline leads to the absolution of the soul, an interior cleanliness which serves God. You'll encounter 5 phases of the discipline process: ancient sacred paths, entry into the knowledge of the lower realms, self-scrutiny, original sin, and the mysteries of the redemption. The soul travels this path by beginning to explore the lower purgatorial and hellish realms, realms 1 and 2, the realms of dominant darkness and pure evil, for the purpose of intensive physical, spiritual, and mental discipline, which is achieved through the deep examination of evil in the self and the world. Take another breath in and out. Again, breathing in the light, breathing out the darkness. As you're coming through all this, I'd like to have you start breathing in and breathing out. We're going to kind of come back to some more consciousness to engage in a discussion on the methods that we find about achieving out-of-body experiences in ancient sacred texts. And so I'd like to kind of bring you back where we can talk about that just a little bit, and then maybe we'll go back in as we move in. So, here we're going to be talking a little bit more about the book, Out-of-Body Experiences, What You Need to Know, which contains these ancient sacred texts and instructions on out-of-body travel. And we're going to travel a little bit with these. But, this actually reminds me a great deal of a work that you and I did together, Brian, called The Stairway from Earth to Heaven, which is definitely something that viewers of this might want to consider as a follow-up if you haven't already seen that. In the out-of-body travel experiences I've had, I've repeatedly shown over the years that the ancient sacred texts, created like this staircase, the staircase of these old books from earth to heaven, each one of them containing an alteration, a key that moves us one step closer to the goal of union with God and moving into the higher realms and spheres. And so this is what we often find in the ancient sacred texts. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that, because you've read so much of these books that I've written.
Well, not only Stairway from Earth to Heaven, but also we're going to have another one pretty soon at the feet of the masters. So Stairway from Earth to Heaven is great because there's also a lot of masters, of course, and sages and prophets and ascetics and etc. But so be on the lookout as well for At the Feet of the Masters. But otherwise,
Excellent.
I was telling you just a bit ago that for me, since you use a lot of these quotes from masters and ancient sacred texts in your books, that it really behooves me to listen to the audiobooks while I sleep. So even when I'm, my son is in my bed, I'll still have it kind of to the side on a low volume because the unconscious is still going to pick it up.
Exactly.
Even if
And
it's
that's a
just,
really good method. Absolutely. Because, and like you always do it, like where you'll listen to it over and over again, which is a really good method for in getting it embedded within the spirit and opening up for the experience.
Yeah, and for me, it's the more I listen to it, then the deeper it gets. And usually, like when I listen to it 1 or 2 times or 3 times, I really don't know what the heck it's saying. You're like, huh? And when I'm reading it too, I'm just like, oh, what is this? But then after I'm with it for a while, or I hear it, or I'm shown it over and over, then it starts to bring on a whole new presence for me.
So ironically, listening to it more than once, but also meditating it, breathing it in, seems to be more effective for you.
For me, yeah.
And I think that's a really good, just as a suggestion for others who may want to consider the same thing. It's a good way to breathe it in. Ironically, in Dialogues with the Mystic too, one of the experiences that Seeker spoke about was how he was shown he should ingest the texts, he should eat them. And, in my response, I reminded him of how in the Old Testament, there's a reference to one of the prophets doing the very same thing of ingesting, eating the texts. And this is, a very symbolic reference of how we need to take it in like nourishment, like food. And the manner in which you describe doing it, it seems to be very much in union with that, in concert with, taking it in as food and allowing yourself to kind of breathe it in.
And when I first started this journey, the Come to Wisdom's Door, it's a short one too. And I would just listen to it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And then I wouldn't listen to it for a long time. And then I'd come back and I'd hear it again because there's just such really good things that are just like pillars, like foundation, that for me it was important for me in the early stages. And then what is the out of body book that you just referenced? Can you show me that again? Sure.
Out of body experiences, what you need to know.
Yeah, man, I've been listening to that like crazy, and it's the person who narrates it, Mr. Rodriguez, does a great job.
I've got some great narrators.
Yeah, you do. You sure do. But I just, that one is such a great vibration. That last one as well, where it's just like, you're just getting the stuff. And then every time I would hear it, it would just kind of, I don't know, it would kind of energize whatever I've already heard. So it would go over it, but energize it a little bit more. And then I'd listen to it again, it would energize it. So it wasn't like my mental understanding where I'm like, oh, I get it now. It was just more like, so I think for me, it was an energetic thing.
Well, that's a really good way because, we always talk about how one of the basic things to understand in the very get-go is that knowledge is not information, it's vibration. And so what you're saying is that you're understanding it because it's coming in vibrationally in different frequencies each time. And so the understanding is probably not something you can always even put in words. It's just something that increases with the repetition. And, this particular book specifically goes through these texts that discuss the very specific methods of out-of-body travel that are in ancient sacred texts. And it goes from, Hinduism through all the way through Baha'i and goes through all these religions. So you can see the instructions from these masters and prophets in these different traditions.
And you're talking about at the feet of the masters?
This one I'm talking about, out-of-body experiences.
Oh, okay. Because that's what we did without at the feet of the masters.
Well, at the feet of the masters is...
Because we started with Hinduism and went through to Baha'i. with that.
Right, exactly. Now, at the feet of the masters is more of a generalized text about sitting at the feet of the masters, whereas this one is specifically, ancient sacred text instructions on how to have mystical and out-of-body experiences. And, so a lot of people don't realize that we have that in these ancient texts. Literal instructions to things, because a lot of people look at out-of-body travel as being something new, or it's more modern. It's just a new package to something that's been around from the beginning. And so bringing in these ancient writings from those who have come before us really energizes that understanding. And it brings us into those ancient energies, and it brings us into those masters, that vibration that they're trying to make available to us through the words they leave behind. And so I'd like to have you go ahead and take a deep breath and possibly bring your hands together again. We're going to go into some little excerpts from these writings here, so you can go into that energy and that vibration while you're practicing right now.
Would you say this would be a good time to go deeper?
I say so. Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Definitely. Let's do it. And so take a deep breath in, and remember you're breathing in light. And as you breathe out, you're breathing out darkness. And starting with your hands again, vibrating up. Keep breathing as we move through these texts. So from Hindu and Yoga Mysticism by Dasgupta. One of the fundamental conditions of attaining it is the complete elevation of the moral life, including the absolute control of all passions and desires, the abandonment of worldly ambitions and hopes, and the attainment of an unruffled peace of mind. But the dawning of the supra-consciousness which can reveal this truth does not, even so, depend entirely on our own efforts. There is something like divine mercy that must be awaited. This self can only be realized by those to whom it reveals itself. Breathe in, breathe out. From the Yoga Vashisht, or Heaven Found by Saraghu. Even though thou pursue thy appointed path through the world, O Ram, there is beneficent quietude in the throne of the All-Wise, if thou but recognize the knower with thy mind. So long, Ram, as you attain the Atmic state by thy constant mastery of externals, your mind will ever be engaged in inquiry into the unlimited pure wisdom inculcated by your wise guru in the holy precepts. Suraghu made answer, of what avail are circuitous expressions? To say it briefly, it is this. When all longing for the fruits of action cease, and the mind looks upon all equally being directed within itself, then Brahmic bliss arises. The incomparable wise vision is developed, and the resolute Atmic reality alone illumines. Breathe in, breathe out. from Ramakrishna's Mysticism on Sankhya Yoga of the Mind. What you think you should say, let there be a harmony between your thoughts and your words. Otherwise, if you merely tell that God is your all in all, while your mind has made the world its all in all, you cannot derive any benefit thereby. When unavoidably entering into places where there may be temptation, carry always with thee the thought of thy Divine Mother. She will protect thee from the many evils that may be lurking even in thy heart. Cannot the presence of thy mother shame thee away from evil deeds and evil thoughts? Breathe in. Breathe out. From Whispers from Eternity by Paramahamsa Yogananda. As we rest and wake a little to slumber again, so from beneath the cover of fleeting dreams of birth and death, we rise for a while and fall asleep again and dream another earthly dream of struggle. On the sleigh of incarnations, we slide from dream to dream, dreaming on a chariot of astral fire. We roll from life to life, dreaming we pass through dreams, failures, victories. Dreaming we sail over trying seas, eddies of laughter, whirlpools of indifference, waters of mighty events, deaths, births, dreams. It was only in thee that I awoke. And then I knew that I had been dreaming while I thought I was awake. Breathe in. Breathe out. Remember that you can move your fingers up and down in vibration. From Jewish Mysticism by J. Abelson. Believe not that man consists of flesh, skin, bones, and veins. The real part of man is his soul, and the things just mentioned, the skin, flesh, bones, and veins, are only an outward covering, a veil, but are not the man. When man departs, he divests himself of all the veils which cover him. And these different parts of our body correspond to the secrets of the divine wisdom. The skin typifies the heavens, which extend everywhere and cover everything like a garment. The flesh puts us in mind of the evil side of the universe. The bones and the veins symbolize the divine chariot, the inner powers of man, which are the servants of God. But they are all but an outer covering. For inside man, there is the secret of the heavenly man. Everything below takes place in the same manner as everything above. This is the meaning of the remark that God created man in his own image. But just as in the heavens, which cover the whole universe, we behold different shapes brought about by the stars and the planets to teach us concerning hidden things and deep secrets, So upon the skin which covers our body, there are shapes and forms which are like planets and stars to our bodies. All these shapes have a hidden meaning and are observed by the sages who are able to read the face of man. Breathe in light, and breathe out the darkness. Breathe out. Self-realization of noble wisdom from the Lankavatara Sutra. The mind system, which is the source of the evil outflowings, consists of the 5 sense organs and their accompanying sense minds, all of which are unified in the discriminating mind. There is an unending succession of sense concepts flowing into this discriminating or thinking mind, which combines them and discriminates them and passes judgment upon them as to their goodness or badness. Then follows aversion to or desire for them, and attachment and deed. Thus, the entire system moves on continuously and closely bound together, but it fails to see and understand that what it sees and discriminates and grasps is only a manifestation of its own activity and has no other basis. And so the mind goes on erroneously perceiving and discriminating differences of forms and qualities, not remaining still even for a minute. The Blessed One replied, "First, there will come a clearing insight into the meaning and significance of things, and following that will come an unfolding insight into the significance of the spiritual ideals, by reason of which the bodhisattvas will be able to enter more deeply into the abode of imagelessness and be able to experience the higher samadhis and gradually to pass through the higher stages of bodhisattvahood. After experiencing the, quote, turning about, unquote, in the deepest seat of consciousness, they will experience other samadhis even to the highest, the Vajra Vimbopana, which belongs to the Tathagatas and their transformations. They will be able to enter into the realm of consciousness that lies beyond the consciousness of the mind system, even the consciousness of Tathagatahood. They will become endowed with all the powers, psychic faculties, self-mastery, loving compassion, skillful means, an ability to enter into other Buddha lands. Before they had attained self-realization of noble wisdom, they had been influenced by the self-interests of egoism. But after they attain self-realization, they will find themselves reacting spontaneously to the impulses of a great and compassionate heart, endowed with skillful and boundless means, and sincerely and wholly devoted to the emancipation of all beings. Breathe in and breathe out.